Ho ho ho! 'Tis the season, folks, for the first of many Christmas special reviews. Yep, those episodes that seem to be produced out of obligation and yet somehow wind up being some of the most important in the canon, especially the ones in Series 7, the first being the episode in question today, The Snowmen. What an inspiring title. This may indeed be considered Clara's debut episode, but of course, from how this episode ends, this isn't the 21st century Clara, or maybe it is? I'm not sure if Moffat did this to bat away the commonly held belief that he has a hard time killing off companions, hence killing 3 of them 2 episodes in a row. In the spirit of tradition, let's kick things off with the prequel to this episode, shall we?
Hello, and welcome to a special Children in Need minisode of Doctor Who. Woohoo!
Oh boy, you can really tell Smith's had enough by this point. Holy shit. I suppose the Doctor completely shelving the idea of saving the universe is moderately interesting. The pendulum seems to have swung completely the other way since Tennant travelled without a companion, but he got a whole mini-series of specials to tackle that stuff. This episode sees the idea strung up as a marketing hook that then gets unravelled by the time we're halfway in. The Snowmen begins with the backstory of the Great Intelligence. This is a character who whispers in people's ears and then decades go by and suddenly they're cruel psychopathic geniuses of their time. Aside from Ian McKellen's creepy vocal performance, this start had me cringing in seconds, from the strange CGI snowflakes to the expository dialogue and child acting.
He never talks to anyone. He's so alone.
Who the hell even is this guy?
I don't want to talk to them. They're silly.
They're silly.
50 years later, this child becomes Richard E. Grant, aka Dr. Simeon, who supplies snow from space to this big talking snow globe. The Snowmen also eat people, which in typical BBC fashion is delivered with quick cuts and lots of screaming. This is the only time in the episode that they actually pose a threat. The rest of the time they just grin and look kinda pathetic, in all honesty. Grant does a good job at delivering a sinister performance in this episode.
I said I'd feed you. I didn't say who to.
Albeit limited by screen time and lack of dialogue alone. Later we see him laying claim to a pond that's frozen over. This Captain Latimer's governess died and her body froze beneath it 1 year prior.
You didn't find her till a month later, when the ice finally melted. It is the sort of thing one remembers. Ice remembers too.
Grant continues to thrive performance-wise when he comes into contact with my 2 least favourite smug badass babes. The fact he claims the lizard lady and sidekick are what Conan Doyle based Sherlock Holmes upon is admittedly humorous, especially this.
I doubt the readers of the Strand magazine would accept that the great detective is, in reality, a woman.
Noting the fact that her scaly green skin is less unusual than her gender. Meanwhile, Clara shows off as a part-time barmaid, part-time governess, who was intrigued enough by a well-sculpted snowman and a bloke in a top hat that she thought, right, forget my shift, I'm going to climb on top of a moving wagon completely silently and scare the living shit out of that bloke. As a result, the Doctor locks her inside the wagon whilst he and Strax look at some snow. Kinda morbid, don't you think? They then threaten to wipe her memory for some reason with a memory worm. The Doctor reminds Strax about a set of gloves that need to be worn to handle this memory worm thing. Oddly, it is Clara who reminds the pair of this, accepting the idea of a memory worm as though they're as common as poverty. We do have to remind ourselves, though, that this is the Clara that is allured by strange men.
Who was that?
I was talking to a sad man.
Clara Oswald, what have I told you about talking to strange men?
So naturally, when there are 2 of this variety in Victorian London, she must be having a field day. Anyway, the reason she didn't run away was because she really wanted to know who built that snowman round the back of the pub.
I don't understand how the snowman built itself. I'll run, once you've explained.
This is where a whole bunch of them suddenly appear and we establish the rules surrounding these monsters. You think about them, they appear. You think about them melting, they melt. Easy, right? Well, thankfully they never become a threat again past this point, probably because of this very idea. The Doctor then decides to take Clara back to the pub. He puts her in the carriage, and then, just as silently as she climbed on top of the carriage, she is seen exited from the carriage without Strax even hearing.
Merry Christmas. Take her back where we found her.
So I take it she just no-clipped her way out of that carriage? Like a ghost?
I don't believe in ghosts.
If you really wanted to prevent this shit from happening, you could have just locked her in again like you did earlier. We then come to what is possibly my favourite part of the entire episode with the big invisible ladder and staircase to the sky stuff. There's this lovely air of mystery surrounding the Doctor's character, and it's done without any words being spoken. Like, we all know you can't walk on clouds, but it's magical, and Clara's theme actually works to add this sense of wonder to the situation instead of making the entire thing about her. Intriguingly, it's only here that Clara actually runs away upon realising how crazy the whole situation is. It's more than just a strange man now, it's something out of a fairy tale that she can't quite take in all at once. I truly and unironically love this scene. Clara then shows herself to have this second job of looking after two more terrible child actors.
I did 7 drawings, and we saw a dead cow.
Franny, imagine a melting.
What?
In your head! Melt her!
I can't!
Let me also say that they did such a terrible job with the child acting across the board that they scatter the episodes with shots of the children talking with their backs turned and dialogue dubbed over the top.
I don't need anyone else. And we saw a dead cow. What do we do?
Speaking of acting though, I do have to commend Jenna Coleman on her transforming accent throughout the episode. Going from Cockney to posh and back again allows her character to blend in with conviction. So the reason I spoke of the father figure in The Bells of St. John potentially being the whole reason why Clara moved into his house probably stems from this moment here.
You have, if I may say, a remarkable amount of wisdom in these matters for one so very pretty, Miss Montague.
The pair talk about the dead governess that haunts the daughter Franny's dreams, which naturally leads to the suggestion of her needing a doctor, who Clara then goes and looks for. I appreciated the quick and well thought out transitions between these scenes, utilising a meta understanding of the character in question. To see Clara appearing mad as a hatter, calling out to the sky and having one of the Doctor's underlings pulling her away, it just felt like something that would reasonably happen.
I'm looking for the Doctor. Do you know about him? Doctor who?
This works by playing on the idea of Victorian attitudes and how strict the behaviour in public would have been back then. Clara winds up in the Argonian refuge and is restricted to one-word responses to Madame Vastra. This did baffle me somewhat considering all Vastra wanted was the truth, yet there's nothing to stop Clara from lying, and I don't know why they would assume she would lie to begin with. The funniest thing about this whole save your breath scenario is how Madame Vastra talks about this liquid.
There are 2 refreshments in your world the colour of red wine. This is not red wine.
Oh, for fuck's sake, what is it then? It's just needlessly weird. What was the point in this? These characters, oh my god, I yearn to be rid of talking about them. All of this just so Clara naturally said the word pond? Whoop-de-doo. The fact the Doctor was wearing Amy's glasses does the talking alone. Did we really need it shoved in our faces like this? It's literally the same with that stupid book she wrote as well. And what a long-winded way of reminding the Doctor to help people out now and again. Now, things from here get extremely Moffat-y as we see the Doctor dressed up as Sherlock Holmes. I appreciated the irony that his Sherlock-esque demeanour was completely erased by his crappy deduction skills, but then he proceeds to do it successfully with this book that's just left lying around. What an intelligent decision that was. The Doctor just leaves, and I thought it was weird that Dr. Simeon's second most precious possession, that fucking frozen pond, is now under investigation from this man who claimed to be none other than Sherlock Holmes. You'd think perhaps some sort of pursuit would be in order, but no, the Doctor's just allowed to waltz around the pond on the captain's ground like it's nothing. We then witness a bunch of silly things that have their pros and cons. Clara and the Doctor have a rather funny silent Romeo and Juliet moment. The Doctor doing Punch and Judy was a good laugh too. Sadly, the frozen governess showing up looks absolutely terrible. The CGI has aged horribly, and this metallic filter they put over this and the Great Intelligence's voices is so overused at this point.
After you.
After you.
I'm wearing a dress eyes front, soldier. I regret to inform you the position is taken.
It takes so long for her to rematerialise whilst these two have a natter, it's just laughable, as well as removing the non-existent tension that has been built up from her appearance. The motivations of the troublesome trio also confused the living shit out of me. When the Doctor is investigating the pond, Strax comes along for a little ha-ha funny joke before fucking off. After that scene, we see them standing in an archway observing Dr. Simeon getting out of a carriage. The next time we see him is after the Doctor has blown up the governess, putting down a snow generator thingy. Did the trio try to stop him? No, of course not. They show up at the captain's front door for some more left funny jokes.
I'm a lizard woman from the dawn of time. This is my wife.
Remain calm, human scum! A grenade. Wondered if you were needing any grenades.
Grenades?
She might have said help. One pulver grenade would blow these snowmen to smithereens.
I'm sure that if I switched my brain off, I'd be laughing at all of this. Maybe that's the point. Maybe I should have drunk at least a bottle of wine before watching these peak mediocrity Christmas episodes. Worse still is that they fully acknowledge this.
Coming out of that cab parked by the gates.
Then why didn't you do anything about it? Watching them bumble suggestions to the Doctor in the prequel doesn't help matters either. The idea that they inspired Sherlock Holmes is cut to ribbons by this point in the episode. Like it wasn't kind of questionable to begin with. Anyway, Clara finds the Doctor's means of breaking into the house was by landing the TARDIS above it and entering in through the window.
In through the window, that was funny.
Here we see the TARDIS interior, turquoise edition. Inside, we start to see an inkling of potential this Victorian companion could have had.
Smaller on the outside.
Okay. That is a first.
Is there a kitchen?
Another first, because this is the day.
This is the day! Everything begins!
In fact, this whole segment would be rather exciting were it not for Moffat's insistence on tying this character to Oswin from the Asylum of the Daleks episode. Okay guys, think back a bit. Do you remember when Martha Jones just had a cousin that looked identical to her working in Canary Wharf? Nobody in the audience was in any doubt that these two characters were different yet looked the same, so why Moffat decided against starting afresh with this character, and as a result made one of the most convoluted and uninspired companions in the show ever, is beyond me.
What was that?
Rip.
I never know why. I only know who.
Yeah, I feel like I never know why with this show anymore. So after the fall, the Doctor puts Clara under some red light that apparently keeps her alive for a bit. Now, bearing in mind we had this moment.
Release her to us.
You have 5 minutes.
And then just shy of 9 minutes later, the Doctor comes along with his box of underground chocolates to threaten them. Why the hell did Moffat just hit the pause button on his antagonist right here? Imagine him crashing inside the house with his army of snowmen. That would have been great. He doesn't need an invitation inside. He's not a vampire, you plonker. Worse still is that Clara lands right in the midst of a bunch of snowmen. I mean, didn't you see or even hear her body fall to the ground? They meet at Ian McKellen's house with Dr. Simeon coming along just as planned. No further investigation or attempted kidnapping of the captain's household takes place, just... Ugh. The Doctor pulls a rather interesting switcheroo by swapping the ice shards Simeon is after with the memory worm from earlier. This might have been a rather effective way of ending the episode right here, but as we know, they drag out this great intelligence character to become a semi-recurring villain in future Series 7 episodes, and thus gets dragged out in this episode too. Now, it's really cute and all that they were trying to reference some entity from Patrick Troughton's era, but really, I don't like this whole turning Richard E. Grant into a White Walker bullshit. The fight is so bad, and this.
Winter is coming.
Winter is coming! Winter is coming!
Winter is coming.
Love that the snow globe becomes a cum globe at the end as well. And then what happens? The fucking family crying over Clara's death makes it rain salt and therefore destroys all of the snowmen? Right? This is some heebie-jeebie bullshit, man. I mean, for Christ's sake, I'd be willing to give the episode the benefit of the doubt had they actually cried convincingly. Give me a break. Fucking child actors, man. I just realised something as well. The Doctor literally says this to the Great Intelligence.
You know what this is, big fella? A map of the London Underground, 1967. Key strategic weakness in metropolitan living, if you ask me. But then, I have never liked a tunnel.
He's literally flashing the damn thing in its face. And yet not once in the Bells of St. John does the Underground even get mentioned. This could have been a perfect reason for this antagonist to return. Scratch the whole Great Intelligence doing more whispering from childhood idea. Have him be set up as a tycoon that helps develop these tunnels. The Doctor made a mistake and he would have to pay for it. You could even set it in the 60s, like, you know, the boxes from 1967. Why the fuck not? Yet the episode we got instead was that the Wi-Fi was coming to get you. What a waste of potential. We end the episode with a little teaser that a modern Clara will come with some random mate of hers, checking out a graveyard. Oh look, she's standing over her own grave, and she doesn't even notice. What was the point?
I don't believe in ghosts.
Oh, get fucked, you spoon. So, did it suck? This episode had a bundle of potential right here. They could have set up a great, unique companion, and yet the episode repeatedly fell flat on its face. I feel bad for McKellen and Grant, who could have made such a bigger impression if their characters weren't such buffoons in the second half. The Sherlock Holmes stuff was alright, there's a great bit with Clara searching for the Doctor in a fit of madness, and of course, the stuff that stands out the most for me is when they're up in the clouds in and around the TARDIS. But boy oh boy, this could have been cut down to 45 minutes. It's an hour long, by the way. Child acting, sucky snowmen, cringy side characters, and some absolute nonsense waste of time scenes. I give the Snowmen a 4 out of 10. I love that the Doctor exited through that front door as well, whilst all of Simeon's mates are just struggling to get in through that other door to the side. Deary me. And yet, oh wait, it doesn't even have a face.